6:30, and I'm going to call the Transportation Policy Committee to order. Thank you guys, everybody, for being here. Second item on the agenda is to acknowledge a quorum. We do have a quorum here. Do want to acknowledge a new member for the month, maybe two, and Mayor Payne from the city of Lubbock. Thanks for being here and appreciate you coming in this morning.
Glad to be here. So excited.
We can feel it.
We can't fire him, though, can we?
I get, if I may, I'm going to add this to my Texas Tech 100-year community service plan for the community service. These hours count, correct?
They do.
Thank you, Mr. Mandrell.
All right. Agenda item number 3, safety procedures. Those are in your packet for review. Item number 4, public comment acknowledgement. We do have a guest that we wanted to introduce, which is, I guess we'll let Mr. Jones do the introduction there.
Come on. I do have one guest. Mr. Todd Gibson is our new TxDOT field rep. Came to visit this morning. He'll be here today, and if you want to visit with him afterwards, we'll hang around.
Sounds good. Thanks for being here. And then, Mr. Wade, we do have one more.
I do. I have my law partner, Slater Elza. I think most of y'all met him before. And since I was recently appointed the city attorney for the city of Lubbock, I will be leaving your legal counsel. I've appreciated the opportunity to be your legal counsel, and Slater's with our firm, and he'll be the one that's going to step in my place. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Appreciate all your work with the MPO over the years, and you're not going too far for most of us, so we'll get to see you quite a bit. And welcome, Slater. Appreciate you being here. Okay, item agenda number 5, approval of minutes from the April 16, 2024 meeting. Got a motion from Mr. Covart. Of a second? Second from Dr. Wilson. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And agenda item number 6, to discuss and take appropriate action regarding a resolution to amend the 23-24 Unified Planning Work Program. And turn it over to Mr. Jones and Mr. Lucero.
Technical difficulties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I noted in your agenda backup, this item will amend our current 23-24 UPWP to adopt a new task 3.2 regarding the relationship between the MPO and City Bus. The proposed task will delete the previous task description that was judged as a fixed fee relationship by the TxDOT auditors. As a general rule, neither the audit team or TxDOT favors a fixed fee agreement. While our relationship was never intended to be a fixed fee relationship, the lump sum transfer at the end of the budget year caught the attention of the auditors, especially without a billing process to track deliverables. Not to say the least about having to have had previous written approval by not only FHWA, but also FTA for the fixed fee procurement agreement, which would have had to also have had a required written basis for establishing that fee. So in order to fix that relationship with City Bus for the remaining 5 months of the current budget cycle, City Bus and the MPO collaborated to develop a new task that will perform more normally on a frequent billing cycle to deliver a tangible and useful product. The task is called Collaborative Passenger Data Collection and Public Information Dissemination. Upon implementation, the MPO, together with CityBus, will gather passenger data that we, as well as CityBus, must evaluate during the year as part of the federal requirement to evaluate system operations. The collection and analysis includes ridership, boardings, and alighting counts. That's a transit term that means get off the bus. Like in airport lingo, you deplane the plane. In transit, you alight the bus. Enumerate trip purposes and other origin destination information. We will use that data to develop can't keep up here, a web-based dashboard for public use to be displayed on both city buses and the MPO's website to display real-time and historical passenger data in order to analyze and evaluate ridership trends, service performance metrics, and potential areas for improvement. The analysis and evaluation will also enhance the implementation of city buses' transit asset management, or TAM, targets, their Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, or PTASK, targets. In addition, the new task will afford us the opportunity to collectively explore methods to develop and push live updates and service alerts directly to the public by providing real-time information about delays, detours, or schedule adjustments. That way, passengers can make better informed decisions about their travel. The way it will work is CityBus will solicit a provider to provide the equipment that will perform to their specifications and delivery methods. The MPO then will reimburse the transit agency based on paid invoices according to the task description in the new subrecipient agreement. The task and new agreement will carry forward into the 24-25 budget cycle. And to that end, we have already sponsored 2 opportunities for public comment, one on the 9th and one on the 16th, for a 10-day comment period per our public participation plan, with no adverse comments. Short of any questions, I would like to ask you to support the resolution that is in your agenda backup so we can get that to TP&P for action.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions or comments regarding this UPWP adjustment? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve. Thanks, Mr. Massigo, for that. And second, Mr. Kovar for the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Which will take us to agenda item number 7, which is taking appropriate action regarding the updated Title VI and Environmental Justice Plan, including the LEP, or Limited English Proficiency and Language Assistance Plan. Back to Mr. Jones and Lucero.
I don't know how y'all feel, but I like the old way of doing business. Okay. Quickly before we get to the plan, which was included as a separate document ahead of your agenda email, I just want to reiterate that I'm not going to ask you to approve the plan today, but rather just accept it and send it to the consulting team who is working on our long-range plan right now so that it is ready for public involvement, their public involvement initiative scheduled for June the 18th. I just wanted you to see it and know what's in it as it is the last piece or component of the plan that this board hasn't seen yet. And know that it will come back to you along with all the other components for your final review and approval after that public involvement initiative. As a subrecipient of federal funds for transportation planning, USDOT, FHWA, and FTA, all three require the MPO to comply with various non-discrimination laws, including but not limited to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which forbids discrimination against any person in the United States because of race, color, or national origin by any agency receiving federal funds. Also, each agency shall make achieving environmental justice part of its mission by identifying and addressing, as appropriate, disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects of its programs, its policies, and activities on minority populations and low-income populations. To that end, know that this board has enrolled Title VI and EJ criteria into your Decision Lens project selection matrix. As to the highlights of the plan on page 1 in that document that was in your agenda package, page 1 of the plan contained the 9 actions provided in the plan to ensure compliancy with the law and protect against discrimination. Things like developing the plan, appointing a liaison officer, developing procedures to handle complaints, providing accommodations for limited English proficient persons with the language assistance plan, and assuring non-discrimination in awarding contracts. On page 2, you read about the 3 principles of environmental justice that help us identify and avoid disproportionately high and adverse effects on minority and low-income populations. Things like avoiding or mitigating those effects during the planning process, ensuring full and fair participation in the planning process by affected communities, and preventing or reducing the demand of benefit by these populations. Continuing on the plan, it talks about the various assurances associated with the plan, the designation of the Title VI liaison officer, and the procedures to handle complaints. Know that we are still using text-dot templates for this purpose, and we have them with us for each and every meeting. In fact, they're out on the table this morning. Then on page 7, there begins a discussion regarding the public involvement ties into the limited English proficiency plan component in order to achieve the so-called meaningful access through a language assistance plan. City Bus has agreed to help us achieve that goal if we ever find ourselves in need of an interpreter or language skills. I've also recently found a link to a public site that provides language skills noted in the District Court and County Court at Law Limited English Proficiency Plan that we plan to use. Title VI and EJ separately and combined are supposed to ensure equity in participating in the transportation planning process. All people, regardless of race, religion, skin color, income, language capabilities, whether written or verbal, or other factors, must be provided opportunities for input into the planning process, as well as review and comment on plans and documents. Title VI and environmental justice are supposed to ensure equity in access to the transportation system, whereby all people are able to get where they need to go, lunch, shopping, medical, recreation, exercise, whatever, using the modes of transportation most accessible to them. This includes any combination of walking, biking, and especially public transportation or transit. It is important to note that equity is not the same thing as equality. And I put at each of your positions a little graphic that might help explain equity and equality. Equality would mean that everyone has the same of everything. Equity means that regardless of what any person has, they can still participate in the planning process and get to where they want to go. To summarize, federal transportation law requires the MPO to seek out and consider the needs of the traditionally underserved populations using the existing transportation systems, including low-income and minority households. So our action today is just for you to accept this report and put it in line with the other chapters that the consultant team is working on for our long-range plan, so that it is ready to go into the public comment initiative scheduled for June the 18th. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for
I got a question.
Mr. Payne?
So on your little chart here,
Yes, sir.
what, did they not have the equal opportunity to pay to go to the game, or were they just kind of sitting on the sidelines here peeking over the fence?
Peeking through the knothole.
All right. So is this something that we're moving towards planning on using in our city, like charts like this for discussion of
No.
being able to peek over the fence? I mean, it seems like everybody had equal opportunity to go to the game, but we're going to cheat and peek over the fence here?
I just thought it might help understand the conversation.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. I just want to say I think that Lubbock does a very good job of providing people equal opportunities, not necessarily equal outcomes in life, but equal opportunities. So I just want to kind of point that out. We're accepting a plan, but I wanted to put that on the record as my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Mr. Warren?
I'd like to go on record as saying I was kind of disappointed when Mayor Payne refused to participate in policy committee when he got to the office, but now I'm kind of understanding why. It might have been a better decision for the group. Just joking, Mayor. With that said, I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to accept and move forward to Title VI and LEP plan for Mr. Warren. Have a second? Second from Dr. Wilson. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, same sign.
Nay.
So the motion passed 8-1. Okay, agenda item number 8 is to discuss and take appropriate action regarding the evaluation of projects submitted under the LMPO Transportation Improvement Program, call for projects for 25 through 28. And turn it over to Mr. Lucero.
Mr. Chair, my apologies for the interruption. I think that would have been 7-1.
Yeah, I was counting the empty chair. Sorry about that. Yeah, 7-1. Correct that. Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Sorry about that.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and fellow board members. Today we'll be discussing the Lubbock Metropolitan Planning Organization's Transportation Improvement Program and the call for projects for 25-28. This has been a much anticipated call. We published for this back in December of 23, and here we are today. I just wanted to kind of inform you and give you a little bit of outline on how the discussion is going to go. There will be no project approval today because part of the public participation plan requires a 45-day window of opening. We will be doing that here if we come to a consensus to open up today for a 45-day window. So what we will be doing today is just doing a discussion on project evaluation process, the additional considerations, any conclusions that were received, and any actions required to be able to move forward. And so that's kind of why what you had in the packet that was sent to you were projects, just identifying what projects were submitted and kind of just the evaluation process that was going. We won't be making any decisions today on value of projects or anything of that sort, but I am prepared to be able to kind of discuss any questions that you might have based off of what the TAC members had in their discussions. And so we did provide some printouts for you, some paper printouts to kind of help with that methodology and that mindset from the TAC side. But we'll go ahead and move forward with the presentation today. So the LMPO uses a multi-step process to evaluate TIP projects. The process ensures that we select projects that are both technically sound and aligned with the regional transportation goals. And so that's a federal requirement that we have a non-biased selection process. And the region has developed a process that can ensure that we are both meeting both sides of the coin. The first step is to categorize the projects into 6 groups. This helps us to compare apples to apples when we evaluate them. Not all funding sources can fund every single project on the list, and not every single project can meet every single policy goal. Based off of this, we utilized a decision tool that was developed on our behalf through TxDOT, and that was called Decision Lens. We brought those goals and those inputs to you last year to help evaluate and calibrate that tool. That software program helps us to both objectively rank the projects based on criteria that the board has established. We also evaluated the projects based on how well they align with the goals from the Lubbock Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the Transportation Policy Committee. So back in 2019, the committee came together and developed some policy goals for the region. We needed to make sure that we ensure that these projects are meeting those goals and that we are finding projects that help kind of bring the opportunities that you wanted to see here in the region. And so with that, we utilized some additional tools to be able to help ensure that those policy goals were measured correctly and unbiasedly. And so we used a tool called NEPA Assist to help evaluate that. That is a federally developed tool that helps bring in things like environmental justice, to bring in air quality or water quality, to kind of bring in census data information into an evaluation ranking process. We also utilized Compact, which is a tool developed by TTI and on behalf of TxDOT that helps measure air quality, congestion, and travel time. There on the right, you'll see there was multiple rankings. The rankings were based off of not just the entities, but the type. We gave them the LMPO score, which is the policy committee's goals, and we gave them a score based off of Decision Lens. And then the TAC took a look at it and had a discussion based off of, do we rank these from 1 through 36? It was about 64 projects, one that came from the Bike and Walk program. Or do we rank them based off of the top 12 and see what pots they fall into and see how well we can back fund? And the reason why I think the TAC committee did this objectively, they first took a look at all 60 some odd projects objectively, and then they understood that there was $1.6 billion worth of requests. With $1.6 billion worth of requests, it dwarfed our about $58 million worth of funding availability over the next 8 years. And so we went ahead and just said, well, at this point in time, we know we're going to have a very extensive illustrative list. And so on that list, doesn't need to be ranked. It doesn't need to, it just needs to be evaluated and gone through to make sure that they were truly valid projects. And so it helped cut down some of the evaluation process and some of that evaluation time. So that way we could get projects in front of you as a committee to evaluate.
Mr. Chair. Real quick, Martin, a clarification. You said the total number of the projects was $1.6 billion?
$1.6 billion worth of requests.
$1.6 billion?
Yes.
And that the funding available is $58 million?
Yes.
Okay, I went to law school, so I didn't have to do math, but that's pretty wide discrepancy there.
There is. There's a huge need in this region, more need than what we can fund as an MPO. there's more need in this region than I think the member agencies can fund on their own dime within the next 8 years. But what this process does is it helps us evaluate each project individually, and it gives us merits to measure off of. And it allows us to be able to say, what type of project is this, and what can it be done, and what funding source may be available in the future to fund. And so by going through this process of saying, we know we have a greater need, we know there's more projects out there than what we can fund, if there's ever a federal funding source or a state funding source that becomes available for a different type of call, they can say they have been ranked through the MPO process, they had been submitted to the MPO, and although the MPO found them worthy, they did not have enough funds to fund them. And so then that gives you 3 check boxes off the federal program, and it gives you 4 check boxes off the state program, and then you're able to submit that project for additional funding and consideration underneath other pots of funding because you went through these steps. And so it allows us to be able to make sure that we did all the things that you needed to do ahead of time, so that way when the funding becomes available, we're not rushing to get a project evaluated or get a project put through. And so it's a very needed process. It also helps us to be able to just establish what is truly the need and the goals here in the region. And so if we ever do become an MPO that has some additional funds, we have projects we can pull from here in the next 5, 10 years without having to go through an extensive call again. In addition to this formal evaluation process, our public participation plan requires a public outreach process and public input. We have started going through that with the TAC committee, but today what we'll be searching or asking the policy committee to do is to be able to go ahead and open up a formal 45-day window. This allows us to be able to open up a public participation window that then we can go ahead and go out for public comments and be able to see what the public reaction is to some of these projects identified, some of the need that has been identified, and be able to receive those comments and bring those back to the committee for consideration. With that, we do have an anticipated public opportunity here at the end of May. We'll be going to the Chamber of Commerce Economic Fair to be able to go out and to be able to showcase this tip call, to be able to reach out and ask the public for any input on these projects, and to be able to see what their feelings are. With this process, as well as you have an opportunity as a committee to be able to take a look at these projects, to be able to understand what was submitted on behalf of you through your staff and through the committees that were down below, and to be able to ask questions throughout this 45-day window. The LMPO is committed to using a multifaceted evaluation process to ensure that the TIP funds and projects that will be best serve the transportation needs of the Lubbock region. This process includes both quantitative and qualitative scoring and considerations. We believe that this approach will help us to select the projects that are effective and efficient. And with that, I stand for any questions that you may have, as well as look for a opportunity to be able to go and open up a 45-day window.
Thank you, Mr. Cerro. Questions? Mr. Atkinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Martin. The large sheet that do you have that where you can display it? The big one?
Is it on your screens?
Yeah, just kind of as an item of correction on Category 9 and Category 7, the middle and the bottom, where it says 80% local, 20% federal, shouldn't that be reversed?
It is reversed. I apologize. That is correct. The title of that column is incorrect.
Okay, so understanding that, what specifically is this board being asked to approve and push forward? And is this all of the changes
So,
that the TAC has recommended?
so this here is just a funding schedule of, basically, the TAC took a look and said, if we have all these projects, how soon can these projects be funded, and when is that funding pot available? So based off of that, there was a ranking that was received. So like if you take a look at category 10 on the top, those were the top 5 projects. As you can kind of see, even with the top 5 projects there, we can't fully fund every single project. And it would take to 2033 to be able to get these projects out the door because of the limited amount of money we have come in every year. So we'll be cobbling money together, and then in year 2023, we'll have sufficient funds to be able to do the Safe Shoulders for All from the county. The intersection improvement for the city of Lubbock's traffic ask would be fully fundable in year 25 because we have funds that we have been rolling over since 24. And so by the time that comes through, we would be able to fund that project wholesale. But this is just basically more of a schedule on when would funding become available if these projects were approved in this order. The reason why this wasn't presented today is because today we're not making any decisions on any funding project. What we're asking to do is be able to go out and get public comment based off of all the projects submitted. Then we'd come back to the policy and we would present to you the tax opinion based off of what they initially thought of, what any public outreach was received. So if we go to the public and all of a sudden they identify a black bean that we failed to identify earlier on, they still have an opportunity to discuss that. And then they go ahead and we come back to the policy board. And as the policy committee, you get an opportunity to be able to take a look at not only what the public stated and what they thought was important, you get to take a look and see how the TAC evaluated this from their viewpoint, and then make a decision as a policy committee. You can take a look at all the projects wholesale, or you can take a look at what the TAC identified as some of the top priority based off of their professional opinions and some of the conversations that we've had. And we get to have a conversation as staff presenting the information to you, and you get to ask us all the questions you want based off of those projects and be able to kind of go from there. After the 45-day window, you'll be able to make a decision on how you like to move forward with those project selections and move forward at that point in time.
So the document on the screen is what goes to the 45-day comment, or is it
No,
this
sir.
one?
It's the full list of projects, because what's going out to the public is are these projects all the projects that should be considered here for the region, right, for a TIP, for a transportation improvement plan, and then what they feel is important about these projects and what isn't important about these projects. And so then that way we can go ahead and get an idea of what the public anticipates as needs, as well as timing and just, ideas of, what's important, what's not important, if there's something that we failed to consider, and just bring those comments back to you. Because the public might come back and they might say, we failed to consider, that Park X has a trail that connects out to Street X, and that has a bus station that's just down the street, but there's no sidewalk from the bus station to the bus stop to the park trail to the school, and that we should put sidewalk down on X Street. And so then we can go ahead and bring that back to you and say, hey, we received these public comments, and you might take a look at that and say, well, that's a really good comment. Maybe we should put that sidewalk in. Go back and evaluate that project and add it to it. Or you might come back and say, yes, that's been identified in the bike plan, but these projects carry a little bit more weight, and we'll move forward with those projects. And so that's the reason why we have that public participation window, to be able to make sure that we involve the public in our decisions, that we're transparent in all the projects that were identified and presented, and that you have an opportunity to react to what our constituents, our residents are saying.
Okay. Steve, did you have questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Warren.
So Martin, you say that what we're taking to the public is this gigantic list of projects,
Correct,
correct? Is that the $1.4 billion worth of projects?
correct.
Okay. So what's the purpose of the chart that's on the screen?
So this here was an opportunity for the TAC members to evaluate all the projects. As I stated a little bit earlier, they, instead of ranking traditionally from 1 through 63, they took a look at the top 12 projects that were ranked based off of decision lens. And so let me go ahead and bring up the other sheet really quick. Where's the PowerPoint? So if you take a look at that's unfortunate. Hold on. Right here. So if you take a look at that, those have the rankings. That sheet that you see on the screen is the same projects except with the projects rankings from Decision Lens, how Decision Lens took a look at and evaluated each one of those projects individually, and how those projects ranked against the policy board goals, and then how the TAC decided to, give a point or not give a point depending on if it was in the top 12 and if there was a fundable project. We would love to fund all 100% of these projects, but basically what the TAC decided to evaluate was to be able to go ahead and see what projects already had floated to the top and to see how those projects fit inside the funding pots available. And so in that case, you can kind of take a look there, and you'll see that, Loop 88 had a score of 0.87 on Decision Lens, but based off of the policy goals there, it had a slightly lower score of 0.35. Or you can take a look and you can see that the City of Wolfer's Alcove project had a score of 0.59 from the policy matrix, but a 0.65 off of the Decision Lens. And so what we ended up doing was you take 40% from the Decision Lens, so you make sure that that project is able to be funded. So is it ready to go? Is it safe? Is it, does it meet all the check boxes that we have to go through to make sure that we don't lose funding? And then we took a look and we gave 30% for qualitative, and then 10%, or the remaining score, 30% from the TAC evaluation on, based off of where it should fall in that ranking for the total score.
Okay, I don't think you answered my question. What's the purpose of this chart?
So that chart there was to be able to take those top 12 scores and to be able to take a look at how they could fall in what funding pot and when would they be able to receive full allocation.
Based on whose input? Who set these priorities?
Those are based off the Decision Lens scores, which were set by the policy committee and through the tool that was brought to you. It was set by the policy committee's policy goals in 2019. And so then those rankings came through and fed into those. And then the TAC committee just did the last little bit in ranking those top 12 projects into what funding pot they would best fit.
Okay, so it seems to me, it appears anyway, that we're going to the public, you're asking us to go to the public with this long, giant list of projects, yet the MPO, for lack of a better word, has already decided what the priorities are and what funding is going to each project, is the way it comes across. Because I've been to an awful lot of public meetings on the tip in my career, and at best you get 3-4 people show up and nobody has any input whatsoever. So it just comes across to me that you've already made up your mind on what the priorities are. Plus, I have another problem. Who's the sponsor for Alcove? It's shown as City of Wolford on the screen right now, but it's shown as Lubbock County on the overall big list. Who's the sponsor?
So the sponsor is the city of Wolford.
Uh-huh.
Lubbock County helped out with the engineering to make sure that the engineering was correct and helped submit that project on behalf of the city of Wolford. With the city of Wolford, we made a change where the city of Wolford came in and they took ownership of that project submission.
Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, on the 4-year tip window, we have roughly $30 million available in Cat 7, is that correct?
I believe so.
And the TAC or some other group has determined that 24 million of that needs to go towards Alcove, is the way it appears on this sheet.
So as the rankings laid out, Alcove was the #1 project for that type of funding, yes, sir. And so they, as that, they would receive the first opportunity or the first kind of opportunity to be able to say, yes, we would like to move forward and seek funding for our total ask, or we would like to say, well, we can't wait that long and we'd like to turn that money away.
Well, then I'm very confused. How is it the #1 ranking when on the screen, decision lens alone has it at 0.58 versus a lot of numbers higher than that. The LMPO scoring has it at 0.59. I see a 0.6.
So you're correct. If it was just a decision lens opportunity where you're just taking a look at quantitative scoring, there are other projects that are ahead of it. Yes, that is correct, based off of that. But what we have here in front of you is a mix of quantitative, so how it scores. Is it ready to be built? Does it have things that were in the decision lens? But then we also take a look at the qualitative opportunity. And based off the qualitative, it receives a certain score as well. So this isn't just one column of scoring. This is a combination of the total score. So based off that total score, it was, I believe, item 3 or 4 total rank. But based off a funding pot, being able to put in what funding pot it would not fall into the funding pot for category 10. It would fall into category 7. And so based off of there, all those projects that you see in category 7 are only those projects that can be funded in category 7.
Okay,
And
my
so,
final question, I hope. $30 million available in Cat 7. According to your chart, 24 million of that would go to Alcove. Where's the other 6 million going?
so the committee, the TAC committee, chose not to prioritize that other $6 million at this time because of the length of time it would take to go out there and no one single project being that dollar amount. So all the rest of the remainder of the projects were above that dollar amount, and so at this point in time, they did not prioritize that dollar amount. It doesn't go away. They just didn't give anything, they didn't give anyone that priority at that point in time to backfill that $6 million.
Okay, I'm looking at another chart that you guys evaluated. It's not in y'all's paperwork, but it was evaluated by the TAC. And it includes a column called Ask, which is how much each entity, TxDOT, City of Wolford, City of Lubbock, Lubbock County asked for. And according to it, City of Wolford asked for 24 million for Alcove, and they're getting 24 million. TxDOT asked for 6.3 million for one of the Loop 88 projects. And you're showing none of that's going to TxDOT because there was no project that fit that dollar amount is what I just heard you
So
say.
the total project for Loop 88 is well above $6 million. What the TxDOT representative at the time was asking, they were asking for whatever could be filled in for Loop 88.
Okay.
You're correct. That was what was asked. What the committee indicated there was they can't fully fund Loop 88 with $6 million. That Loop 88 project is to the magnitude of probably 10 times that.
Okay.
And so what the committee chose to do was not forward a recommendation to obligate those funds at this time, or to kind of rank that. It is just what it is. It doesn't mean that those funds can't be obligated. It doesn't mean that those funds can't be taken a look at by the policy committee.
Well, help me understand this then. According to this, which again, I'm sorry, y'all don't have this in your packet, but this is what the TAC discussed. There was only 2 projects to ask for any Cat 7 money. Alcove and Loop 88. Those total up to $30 million. Were there other projects that were asking for Cat 7?
So there was other projects, County Road 7300. It's a $36 million project that was also available to be able to take a look at. 146 float up to the top from the city of Lubbock. It's about $11 million project.
Yes, but thank you for that. But it shows $0 for their ask.
That's because at the point in time when it came up, it was evident that they weren't going to have an opportunity to be able to request any funding. And so when the TAC took a look at it, the TAC just made a decision not to rank those projects, or to be able to prioritize those projects at this time for that $6 million.
Okay. So if we approve you guys going to public involvement on this today,
We're not asking for the public to evaluate any of that. They're evaluating the projects based off the project submitted, the project descriptions, the projects from twos, the project date available, the projected date for it to go out, and kind of anticipated to kind of be constructed, and then for those projects to be kind of evaluated for inclusion in the long-range 10-year plan and the longer-range MTP.
so at a later date, this whole thing will come back to this body
Correct.
for a decision to be made on what money to put into what project.
That is very correct.
Okay. So I'm still kind of confused why we're even discussing these rankings at this public involvement.
So what we were asking you to do today was to be able to take a look at the list of the 63 projects, to be able to evaluate that list and say, yes, we would like to go out to a 45-day window for that list that were submitted by the TIP to receive public comment. The reason why the TAC has already kind of gone through the eating up of this is because when that 45-day window is done, it will already be into the summertime, and we need to be able to have this list already created and submitted and decisions made by the policy committee for hopefully the August 25, 28 submission. And so in order for us to be able to meet that timeline, the TAC is doing their very best to be able to do the project evaluation and have the information ready for the policy committee as soon as possible.
Okay, I'm going to shut up. I just want to put it on the record that this body will have another opportunity to look at these projects, both from a ranking area and a funding level and a readiness level based on the local sponsor. That this list going to the public is not a decision as to what money's going where. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Warren. And I do have to step away, so I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Wilson to finish us out here.
I got a question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I guess, and maybe it's because I'm coming on board late, but I'm making sure, Martin, that you plan to present this entire list for public comment.
Correct.
So if 3 to 5 people come in and they decide, hey, we really think that Ursuline to Frankfurt to Slide is that 5-lane minor arterial is extremely important. We think that should be number 1 on the list.
We'll bring that information back to you as a policy committee.
Would you recommend that, though, as a committee?
So what the public participation does is collect all public comments, and then we have to order those comments in the sense of group them together. So like if 5 people said the same comment, we wouldn't list all 5. We would say 5 individuals commented X. And we'd bring all those comments back to the policy committee for your consideration and for your digestion.
But isn't that what you've kind of already done with your decision lens and then
So
these
the
other
decision,
priorities?
yeah, the decision lens and all that were just based off of the goals and priorities already set by the committee. And so we have to be able to do federally, we're mandated and required to be able to have a process that can evaluate all these projects and do it in an objective manner. So that way each project is taken a look at upon its own merits. But that does not alleviate us of the responsibility to be able to go out to the public, to be able to receive the qualitative information and public input that is required. So if, say for some reason, we go out there and we receive 100 comments that just say, Project X is going through our neighborhood and we really don't want it. We hate it, it's going to destroy our neighborhood, don't do it, we'll bring that back to you. And then you as a policy committee can say, wow, we didn't realize that neighborhood really did not like Project X. Maybe we shouldn't include it on this list. And then you have an opportunity to be able to say, kick that project off. You might be able to receive 200 comments that come back and just say, hey, you know what? We really think Project Y, that's our #1 project, just like what you just pointed out. That might be them. And then as a policy committee, you'll take a look at all those comments and just have an opportunity to be able to take a look at how that balanced out with project readiness, how that project balances out with, an opportunity to be able to be fundable, and in how those projects, will either float or drop. But what the public comment period does is allow us as an MPO to be able to say, hey, this is what we are trying to plan for the next 20 years. This is what we think you need, from a professional opinion for, the next 10 years. Or this is what we plan on trying to fund in the next 4 years. And then it gives you an opportunity to be able to fulfill your obligations underneath the federal requirements to be able to do all those pieces. Take a look at it objectively, receive the public comment from a qualitative standpoint, and then to make a decision on what you feel is needed here in this region.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I feel that I have to congratulate the city of Lubbock and Lubbock County on meeting all of your transportation needs that you've had for so many years now that we're at a point where Alcove is the top priority for this metropolitan area. Apparently, all the city streets and county roads in this metro area have been completed and are in good shape. So congratulations, you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Atkinson.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Martin, a couple of these are maybe questions, suggestions. You're asking us to send you forward with that entire list, which is basically, well, it's not that one, it's on the screen, it's much larger than that. Basically without recommendations, what you're going to the public with.
Mm-hmm. We're just receiving public comment.
Okay. But the TAC has done their part of the work that they're required to do, and they have produced a ranking. I presume that that'll have to come back to us again. If we're not acting on rankings today, we're acting on comment.
Correct.
So my request, when this comes back, I would like the chair of the TAC to come back and to present those recommendations to us.
We can do that.
Maybe we got off track. I think one of the concerns I have, we don't all up here have all the same information, right? I requested some information tonight, which is the large chart you put on the screen, and I do appreciate that. Mr. Warren has some information from a TAC member, or a TAC advisory committee member, and I've seen other documents from the TAC that leave questions asked at the bottom of documents, and that's their business. They're the pros. We want to hear that. But I think my concern is the board as a whole is not hearing that.
Correct. We will bring back the full story. What we're trying to do is trying to walk you through the process that's been outlined in the PPP, as well as to be able to make sure that we don't drown you with the hose. I know each one of you are more than capable to take a look and to take a look at these projects and evaluate these projects. But what we were trying to do is trying to do much what we did with the TAC and be able to make sure that everybody understands what the full world of the MPO project requests were, and to be able to evaluate those cleanly, unblushed, without any preconceptions, and then to be able to take a look at the objective tools that were provided to be able to then, at that point in time, come up with, formulate with all your questions, and hopefully by that time, we also have public comments to be able to go in with those questions, and then to have meaningful dialogue and conversations. So that's exactly the process that we're trying to do.
So
is trying to make sure.
answer for me this. You mentioned there were 12 projects that got your binary 0 or 1 as it moved forward. There's only 10 on the sheet.
That's because some of those projects, when we went to go place them into a funding pot, just wouldn't fit into that funding
Okay,
pot. And
so
they
are
just
these
dropped off.
ranked by the TAC 1 to 10 or 1 to 12, whichever's appropriate, irregardless of what category of funding they're competing for?
So the initial item was, they took a look at the total decision lens tree, the ranking from there, and decision lens ends up ranking, like, the #1 project for decision lens happened to be Shallow Water Bridge out in Shallow Water. It was a project submitted by TxDOT. That was the #1 ranking from decision lens. And then Loop 88 and a couple other projects. And then we took a look at, based off of the policy scores there from like NEPA Assist and other things, those had those. And then based off of that, we went ahead and we said, okay, when you take a look at these two total scores, does that really capture your #1 need? So we went back to the
So
TAC.
were the projects ranked 1 to 10 or 1 to 12, or were they ranked, here's the category 7 eligible projects
they were ranked,
and the ranking
they were
within?
ranked from 1 through 63 originally.
Regardless of which pot of money?
Regardless of whatever. Then the TAC said, that's a lot to chew through. We'd like to know what pot of money they would fit into, because not every single one of these projects submitted could fit in every pot. And so we regrouped them into eligible pots, and we said, okay, based off of the ranks that were received from 1 through 63, if we were to put them in the pots funding, some projects fit in 2 different pots, but they didn't rank, float up to the top of those same pots. So if you take a look at, like, an example, the Safe Shoulders for All, that one floated up to the top for Cat 7 as well as for Cat 10, right? The majority of the funding for that project comes out of Cat 10, sorry, not Cat 7, Cat 9 and Cat 10. The majority of the funding for that project was taken out of Cat 10, with the remainder of that project receiving funding in Cat 9. So they did take a look at it. They had an opportunity to be able to say, okay, based off of this, can we re-rank some of our priorities and give an extra point to some projects? But those projects that were deemed to be outside the funding window just received a 0 to make it easier for them to be able to evaluate and process that information.
I have another question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
So not all of these in this list fit into a funding pot, or wouldn't be eligible at some point?
They all fit into a funding pot. They just,
All 63?
all 63. They just don't all fit into the same funding pot.
So why wouldn't we have gone to the public with this first before going through all of this time with the committee to categorize, do the decision lens, and put these in categories, if you're now at some point thinking that public input and comment would then change the decision of the committee?
Because you have to have 2 evaluations done federally. You have to have a professional, qualitative, quantitative position done.
Before public comment?
It can be done as
No,
long as
but
all
that's
of
not
them
my
are done.
question. I'm saying, why didn't we go to the public first with this before you all decided as a committee to start making decisions to bring it, and then now we're going to go back to a committee?
It's just the outline set out by our public participation plan and on the way that things are brought forward to the, so we take it to the TAC first. We let the TAC take a look at it, make sure they scrub the list to make sure all those projects are complete, that they can be constructed, that they meet certain criteria. And so the TAC scrubs through that list to make sure and ensure that those projects are constructible, that there's no fatal flaws with those. And then at that point in time, then we move forward with bringing anything to the policy committee. So instead of coming to the policy committee and asking every single one of you to evaluate every single project from every single community and to take a look at it and to make sure that there's no fatal flaws, that the engineering was done, that they have right-of-way, that they have gone out and made sure that there's no environmental impacts or SHPO issues. We go ahead and we take that to your staff that you send to the TAC, who are professionals, to be able to do that evaluation on your behalf.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So, Mr. Lucero, I kind of have a question, and, forgive my naivety here, but, looking at this kind of preconceived, already decided upon TAC recommendation list, I don't see projects that we've been talking about on this committee for the last 2 years, and just, it just from the city side and looking at where I represent out in, out in Southwest Lubbock, Upland, we've been talking about Upland since before COVID, right? And even before I came onto this committee, it was said that projects were going to be funded, 66th to 82nd, and then 82nd to 98th. So are you telling me that all these projects that we have been talking about on this committee now for, at least my 2 years and prior to that, have been completely scrapped from from what the TAC has now decided kind of in the background to recommend with decision lens and all of that? So all these projects that we were drawn on these maps for 2 years of, yep, this is coming, 25, 26, 26, 28, looking to the future, now no longer are in the running for any of that.
So let me take one step further back. An initial step that was done was any project that has already been committed or let or has current funding did not lose their funding. So if it's Upland Phase 2 has funding right now, you're getting ready to go out, that project, we did not strip through this process. We did not strip any funding from that project. Any, like Woodrow Road has MPO dollars on there. We didn't strip any of those projects because those are projects that are committed. Those are projects that have agreements with the state already. And so all those MPO dollars that have already been committed, that are already obligated, stayed with those projects. Now, any additional funding for any additional phases of any projects, those were submitted by your staff, your communities, and we took a look at those, and if they were submitted, they're in this list. And then they were evaluated against every other project equally, because at that point in time, those projects are standalone projects, and then so they took a look at all those projects wholesale and together. So if it's an existing project, they did have that conversation. They said, we feel that those existing projects should continue to move forward. We're not touching those projects. And that was the tax viewpoint. Much like what David Jones likes to explain to the whole committee, every time there's a new tip, the old tip disappears, right? So we could say, okay, all that funding magically goes away, but from an actual workability and a standpoint, from a commitment standpoint, it was not touched. Those projects were left as is.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further questions from the board? Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're asking us not to vote on any priority, not to take the tax recommendations and all of this that's listed under here as anything, but just to take this full list and open up that 45-day window so we can take it for public comment. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
All right. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to open it up for the 45-day window.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Judge.
without sounding snarky, I move that the committee move the 25-28 tip to allow the two people that really care to make public input.
Do I have a second to that? Thank you, Mr. Kobar. All right. All those in favor of moving this to the 45-day window and open it up for our public comment, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Like sign. Okay. That passes. How many are there? 4, 5, 6. Is that 7 left? 7-0. All right, Mr. Jones, I think we are down to the last bit of our meeting today and moving on to reports.
Thank you. We'll do this quickly. I know this is Mr. Warren's favorite part of the agenda. On page 25 is the federal certification timeline for our certification meeting. It has the agenda with it. You've seen that timeline before, but this one has the agenda with it for that two-day event, July 23 and 24. On page 30 is a 2030 census timeline, which draws me back to the cover of the agenda this morning that announces 2 field tests that the Bureau is going to conduct in 2026. And I want to continue to harp on why it is so very, very, very important for you all at your cities and counties to participate in the census, development of the census as we move forward to the 2030 enumeration. On page 31 is HNTB's timeline for our long-range plan. We've already had 4 progress meetings and several other meetings about content and et cetera. We should get our first 3 chapters for review next week, 3 more chapters the following week. We're still on schedule for an August completion and hopefully a September approval. On page 32 is an announcement about May being National Bike Month. There are several activities noted there for you to avail yourselves to. On page 33 is an announcement about May 16th to May 22nd being National Transportation Week. And again, there are a lot of activities to avail yourself to noted there. Page 35 is an announcement from TxDOT that you still have time to make comments about their statewide 2050 transportation plan. So if you care to do that, just go to their webpage and you can make those comments there. On page 36 is Ayla's dashboard in support of our multimodal plan, and she's going to give you a quick demonstration of that dashboard. It won't take but just a second.
Good morning. So I have a fun dashboard for y'all. This is our active transportation network. So essentially, you can select a bike route. It'll highlight it for you. We can also search for a park or click on a park. It will automatically bring up the amenities and attractions within that park. You can select it from the tables here or click here on the actual map and it'll bring up a table with information. I am working to revamp the data behind the tables. So hopefully things link up a little better and it'll give even more information. For instance, you could click on a bus stop and it would pull up like the neighborhood, the closest school, the closest park. You can also select a school, it'll bring that up. So this is definitely a draft, but hoping to make it even better and neater than this. You can turn off layers and on layers, and even have a little drop down for Lubbock websites. Reset button there to pull it back out. Let's see what else we can do. We can kind of select an area. If you want to say, this is my house. What touches it? Where does this route go that's in my area? And it'll pull up. It'll automatically highlight it for you. I believe I know that was fast, but if y'all have any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
when is this going to be active to the public? Are
we
we
will-
there yet?
We will, it could be now. I can send it out to y'all soon, and so y'all can play around with it,
I would
and then
like
get
that
it
very
up.
much.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Last item is our financial report on page 37. It's through March, or the 50 percentile. You'll notice that we are 88% collected on our revenue, and we are 39% on our expenses, so we're in good shape there. And that's my report, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Anybody questions on reports? All right. Seeing that, it is 9:40, and our MPO meeting today is adjourned.
We appreciate your attendance. Thanks for being here.